stories. Stories are what bind and connect us together, and every story worth telling, every story worth remembering, every story worth sharing has three characters. We have a hero, we have an anti-hero or a villain, and then we have the helpful and empathetic guide. My question for you is, what role are you playing in your marketing and sales communication strategies? What role is your financial brand playing for your account holders and people in the communities that you serve? Are you trying to be the hero? Maybe you're the helpful guide, or maybe, just maybe, unknowingly, you might be playing the unfortunate role of the villain. Let's find out together what role you're playing on today's episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. Greetings and hello, my name is James Robert Lay, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. Today's episode is part of the Practical Perspective series, where I provide you with practical insights to guide you on your own journey of growth at your bank, at your credit union, or at your fintech. And today I'm going to help you understand what role you're playing in the stories that you're telling through your marketing and sales communication strategies. But first, I want to tell you a story. In the 1980s, there was a famous Duracell commercial that I used to see all the time as a kid, featuring a bunch of different bunnies that were banging on cymbals. Maybe you remember this. In fact, I want to roll a clip from the Duracell commercial from 1979 for those of you who might be watching this on YouTube.
Duracell batteries can make fun times last a lot longer. If you put Duracell batteries into one toy and ordinary carbon batteries into all the others, you'd find that after just a few hours of continuous use, the ordinary batteries give up. But Duracell batteries keep going. In fact, depending on the toy, Duracell can last 2, 3, up to 6 times longer. Duracell. The copper top battery. No ordinary battery looks like it. No ordinary battery lasts like it.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast and not watching it on YouTube, what you didn't see were the bunnies drumming and banging cymbals on the screen. And gradually we see all the bunnies, they run out of batteries, except for one. There's one bunny who is still chugging along the way, still banging the drums and cymbals. And that's the one that we're going to assume had the Duracell battery. What's important to note here is how Duracell positioned their commoditized product back in the late 70s and the early 80s is how a lot of financial brands still promote and communicate their commoditized products through their sales and marketing strategies. The focus of the narrative, if you will, is about the product features. For Duracell, it was about how long the battery lasts. And the narrator noted, depending upon the toy, that the battery could last 2, 3, up to 6 times longer. This is how a lot of financial brands communicate about their products. It's the rate, and it's the service. It's the look-alike laundry list of product features. There's no differentiation. But something happened. In 2014, Duracell launched a new commercial that went far beyond promoting the features like they did in the 1980s. And once again, for those that are watching on YouTube, I want to roll this clip. And if you're listening, we're going to come back and I'll give you a little bit of perspective here. But I think you're going to get a sense of the transformation, even if you're just listening, of the story that's being told about this commoditized product. Let's roll the clip here.
They told me it couldn't be done, that I was a lost cause. I was picked on and picked last. Coaches didn't know how to talk to me. They gave up on me. Told me I should just quit.
Don't move until I move. Don't move until I move.
And the last pick is...
They didn't call my name. Told me it was over. But I've been deaf since I was 3. So I didn't listen.
Derek Coleman.
And now I'm here. with a lot of fans in the NFL cheering me on, and I can hear them all.
So for those of you not watching the video on YouTube, the video ends with a text and it overlays stating, quote, "Trust the power within," and that it transitions to the Duracell battery right at the end, closing up. And even after watching this video myself probably 100 times over the years, where I've shared it at conferences, workshops, strategy sessions, even in private coaching sessions with financial brand leaders, those first lines get me every time, which were spoken by Derek Coleman. And if you recall, what did he say? He said, "They told me it couldn't be done, that it was a lost cause, that I was picked on and I was picked last. And the coaches, they didn't even know how to talk to me." The reason these words are so powerful, even more so if you're watching this video on YouTube, is because Derek Coleman was the first legally deaf offensive player in the NFL who was playing for the Seattle Seahawks. And his monologue becomes even more powerful when he said, "They gave up on me. They told me I should just quit. They didn't call my name at the NFL draft. They told me it was over." In retrospect, what makes this story so effective, so powerful, is the deep human emotion. It's that human emotion that drives human connection, a connection that goes beyond promoting the battery features. It's a connection like this that can help your financial brand, go beyond the data points, like rates. Think about the human connection. It's much easier to connect with a human being like Derek Coleman, who has overcome the monster, if you will, which is a story archetype, to overcome his setbacks to achieve his greatest goal. The same could be true for your financial brand. And I want you to think about this for a minute. Do you, just as a human being, don't think about yourself as a financial brand leader or marketing leader or sales leader. Do you connect more with a battery that, depending upon the toy, could last 2, 3, 6 times longer? Or do you connect with the story of Derek Coleman, a person that overcame challenges and adversity to go on to play in the NFL, where the loudest fans cheer him on, and he can hear them because of the Duracell battery? What about your account holders, the people in the communities that you're serving? They connect with a savings rate that you might be offering. Maybe it's 5% APY for a CD, or maybe it's 7% now for a mortgage. Do they connect with that, or would they connect more with a human-centric story where an account holder, a person, a human being, shares their own financial struggle, their pain, and how your financial brand was able to provide a path, a cure, a solution to that pain, to guide them to an even bigger, better, brighter future, to achieve a savings goal, to buy a home, to start a business, to get a car, whatever that might be. You see, the Derek Coleman clip was originally intended for just web-only distribution back in 2014. But because of its emotional appeal and the deep human connection that it made, Duracell actually decided to run this as a TV ad during Super Bowl 48. And I think what makes the story even that much more powerful, Super Bowl 48, that was the year that Derek Coleman's Seahawks went on to defeat the Denver Broncos. And it makes the story arc that much more powerful. And since 2014, Derek's story has now been viewed tens of millions of times on YouTube. But it wasn't about the battery. The battery just played a supporting role in this narrative. The battery, you could say, has played the role of the helpful and empathetic guide. As I have shared before, and I've showed this video at least 100 times at conferences and workshops. It still hits home with people, especially the transition point in Derek Coleman's monologue when he says, "But I've been deaf since I was 3, so I didn't listen." And at the end of the commercial, he wraps it all up and he says this, "And now I am here with a lot of fans in the NFL cheering me on, and I can hear them all." End scene. That battery comes back on, trust the power within, flashes across the screen. And I like to compare and contrast these two different Duracell commercials from two different time periods, because the earlier ad, once again, it was about the features, the facts, the figures. Where, for example, Duracell, quote unquote, lasts longer than Energizer, even though Energizer is never stated, it's implied. But the Derek Coleman narrative is really trying to tap in and tug at your heartstrings, make this deeper, emotive human connection. We can look at this very scientifically too. The first ad around the facts, the figures, the numbers, if you will, well, that's aimed at your neocortex, the part of your brain that is responsible for logic and reason. But the Derek Coleman story, it uses the secret power, if you will, of story, the power of narrative to light up your brain's limbic system. And your limbic system is where it's responsible for feelings, for emotions. And I want you to take a step back, because you could even say that the Derek Coleman story, before it even hits the limbic system and lights up the feeling and the emotive part, is it taps into the reptilian part of your brain. And the reptilian part of your brain is the oldest part of your brain. It's responsible for fight or flight. And I look at this as a binary brain. It's a 1 or a 0. It's true or false. Do you trust someone or something? What's a yes or a no? And when you think about the Derek Coleman story, what Duracell is asking for, without even knowing that it's Duracell to begin with in the first place, it's, do you trust? Do you trust this narrative? If the story can get some emotional pull and create an empathetic connection, a human connection through the message that it's communicating, it becomes far more likely that trust will be established. And I think for a brand, the question is why. It's simple. It's humanity. People trust people. People do business with people. And in this particular case, Derek Coleman is a representative of the Duracell brand. And so throughout Derek's story, those that are watching are connecting with Derek, the human being, not the commoditized product being the Duracell battery. People connect with how this athlete used the battery, used the product, which is commoditized, to overcome the monster. Once again, one of the 7 different ways you can tell a story from an archetype perspective. And that monster was the challenge of being deaf, to achieve his hopes, his dreams, to play in front of the loudest fans in the NFL, cheering him on to win the NFL Super Bowl.